am I always meeting the worst guys? Or why are all these girls so crazy? And then you literally learn about the attachment styles and you're like, wow, it's not even them, it's me.
I have a more avoidant attachment style.
Here's my top 5 signs of an anxious attachment style.
My husband has a more anxious attachment style.
Your attachment style could determine the fate of your relationship.
Avoidant partners tend to, at the core of themselves, want intimacy. They want a partner, they crave love, they want to be close to people, but due to their conditioning in their youth, they almost fear intimacy. And the ladies know this one. If you're arguing with a guy and he's like, man, you're always tripping, man, I got time for this, and he just shuts you down. If he's like a Rico sweeper, I call Rico sweepers guys that when they're mad at you, they block you on everything.
Like, that seems like a headache to deal with, to be honest.
I'm glad you said it. Hey guys, so I'm Natosh Renee, and I'm on the podcast today to talk about attachment styles and relationships. Corey and I had a little conversation in the DMs about it because we were like sharing, some relationships we've been in, and it was something that I discovered while just trying to become a better person. I'm very into self-development and finding ways to just be a better person, be a better partner, better understand men. And it's some information that I feel if more people knew about, it would definitely help to bridge the gap between, men and women, because I feel a lot of podcasts nowadays are becoming very divisive, where it's like men are over
They're
here.
bashing everybody.
It's literally, right? Yeah. And I really feel it's time for women and men to like bridge that gap. We don't hate each other. We need each other. And knowing your attachment style, I feel, is a good starting place to becoming a better partner.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. So first of all, I want to thank you for coming on.
You're
because I want to thank you because I feel like when we spoke on Instagram, because I haven't met you before, right? I'm like, yo, I just got a free hour of therapy. This is crazy.
It's right? So funny.
And that conversation was so intriguing for me. And I'm like, you know what? Because I know you expressed like, yo, I got to come on. Definitely. But I'm like, okay, like I always like kind of like vet people and like, well, what do you want to talk about? How can you give value? But then when you started speaking, I was like, oh yeah, we got to get her on. Yeah. And these days, attachment styles is a little bit of a buzz subject, right? So I hear about it, but I don't know much about it in depth. I have talked about it in a previous podcast, but I do want to get more knowledge on it because ultimately I think everybody kind of wants to strive to have better relationships in their life, whether that's intimate, friendship, family. I think we can all improve, right?
Absolutely. And it's something that I by no means think I'm a total expert on. Fair. But I have learned quite a bit that I share with people. Like I'll even ask them, what's your attachment style? Like, what are you talking about? And then I kind of break it down, and just the way that it helps you to be like, oh my God, I had no idea that's why I was doing it. Because I think when people are in relationships and they kind of, hit like a block or disagreements start coming up more, and you're like, why am I always meeting the worst guys? Or why are all these girls so crazy? Or da-da-da-da-da. And then you literally learn about the attachment styles and you're like, wow, it's not even them, it's me. Like, I didn't even know this is why I was doing it. And I feel like when a person realizes why they're doing something, it's so much easier to have like a lot more grace with yourself and also a lot more grace for other people. So that's the pretty cool thing about attachment styles.
Okay, so then let's like get right into it. Yeah. I know there's 4 major attachment styles. Mm-hmm. For the people that don't know exactly what they are, can you briefly explain a little bit about them?
For sure. So there's 4 categories. There is secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized. And those are the 4 categories.
Okay, so from what I heard, because we're going to get into a little bit about each of them in more depth.
For sure.
But what I heard, and I told you this on Instagram, is that someone had said to me, okay, you adopt these early attachment styles from a child and very early, maybe as close as 11 months or something like that? 9
months. Like really from birth right up until 11 months. They say like those formative moments in your first years is literally where you start to develop that. And it's from your primary caregiver, like the relationship you have with them. So I think a lot of new moms, when they have a baby, fathers too, because it's a joint situation there, they have no idea that their like winging it situation is impacting their child psychologically already. I mean, we already know like being abusive is going to impact your kid, obviously, right? But they don't even realize like when a child's crying, you're like, oh, just let him cry, or just the different ways you may react when the child just expresses an emotion or behavior that you're not used to as a new parent actually impacts them in their adult relationships. And that's kind of like mind-blowing to me.
that is like super mind blowing to me as well. So then let's say like me, I don't have any kids yet, but like how aware do we have to be when it comes to attachment styles in our newborns? Because I think, like, for example, my sister just had a baby, and I'm not sure she's aware of the type of things that she's doing right now while he's 3 weeks old. That can affect his attachment styles. What are sort of things that we should be looking at?
Well, it says that with the attachment styles, basically, I think something that we have to be aware of, or something that I would be aware of if I had a newborn, is I would be very aware of the way that I react when the child is crying. I know that a baby crying is probably not the most pleasant sound to anybody. It might make you feel like, what am I doing wrong? Anxious, like, are they okay? Because a child can't communicate verbally yet. The only way they communicate for, I'm hungry, I need to be held, I'm wet, is literally crying. So everything has the same exact reaction, right? Fair. And I think the attachment style would matter by learning that affection towards your baby is okay. Realizing that if your child is colicky or your child has some kind of indigestion or your child just wants to be close to you, like really embracing that. I feel being as loving as you can, and I know postpartum comes in, I know being nervous as a new parent comes in, but I think something that I would definitely try to do with the newborn, now that I know how much attachment styles matter, is just really showering them with as much love and care and patience as I can.
Grace.
Because I'm and just realizing that that is going to impact them later. Because I know there's some people that are like, oh, let the baby cry, they'll be okay, don't spoil him. That's a big word, don't spoil him.
Yeah, especially in our culture.
Right. The Caribbeans are like, don't spoil him, put him in the crib, Yeah. But you don't realize that when that baby is crying, it needs something. So
what's the alternate? It's answering that cry every time, or?
I honestly feel if we're talking attachment styles and what I've learned, every time. They didn't ask to be here. That baby needs you. Fair. You know what I mean? Don't be like, oh, just put it down. I don't think that you could ever spoil a baby with too much love. Some people may disagree and be like, no, they got to learn to self-soothe. Why? It's a baby. Why do they have to learn that already? When they get older and they're toddlers, you can say, okay, right now is mommy time, right now is you time, and teach them different ways to regulate. But as a newborn, I personally don't feel that that's the right time. And I don't think the child's going to be like some tyrant because you held it a little longer.
Especially at such a young age.
Right. But there are people that really will leave the child in there to end up sucking their thumb, to like self-soothe because it just needed someone to hold it. Matter of fact, I don't know, you probably heard of the study that happened, I don't remember, like way back. And they said they wanted to know if babies like needed parents to actually like cuddle them and love them in order for them to grow up normally. So I believe they took like a bunch of children, just did the minimum, like feeding them and changing them, but just left them untouched, like no affection at all. And the babies passed away in that study. I'm like, what kind of madness?
First of all, what kind of study is that?
It was way back. It was way back because I'm sure they're all in jail now or probably dead because it was that way back. But they wanted to know like if children just developed on their own or if they actually needed parents to be there, and they absolutely need them. So I can understand how this study, I don't quote me on the nature, but I just know those facts about it. I can't remember who did it, can't remember the person that did it, but if you Google, the baby study and touching, you'll find the information. So that was interesting to me. Back in the day, they used to do some weird stuff to even
crazy stuff.
Even to the mentally ill. They used to like put them in ice baths and electrocute. Like it was madness.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That was one of them.
I want to get a little bit in depth on each of the attachment styles, and I want to be a little bit biased because I know I'm avoidant attachment, and we talked about that a little bit. So can we start off with being an avoidant attachment? Like, what does that look like? What are the characteristics that I may have?
I would love to because it's funny. I actually seen a TikTok right on time yesterday actually, and there was a lady saying that right now in the dating market, why it currently is so tragic to most people. They said because most people that are available right now are actually avoidant, which is why they're not in relationships.
So I'm messing things up.
Well, but there's a lot of anxious people too because, they tend to separate, so whatever. But avoidant partners tend to, at the core of themselves, want intimacy. They want a partner, they crave love, they want to be close to people. But due to their conditioning in their youth, they almost fear intimacy. They're more logical based. They don't really...
I'm black and white.
Right. They don't assess people, relationships just purely on emotion. It's more like, does this make sense for me? How does this work into my life? I'm seeing these signs that doesn't really work for me. And they don't really approach it on this emotional, oh, I need love, da, da, da. At the core of them, they want that. But their mind rules their actions more so than anything. They are usually hyper independent. So they don't really need people to feel happy. They actually probably prefer solitude. In addition, whenever there's a problem in the relationship, and the ladies know this one, if you're arguing with a guy and he's like, man, you're always tripping, man, I got time for this, and he just shuts you down, if he's like a Rico sweeper, I call Rico sweepers guys that when they're mad at you, they block you on everything. I'm talking TikTok, I'm talking email, I'm talking phone numbers, whatever it is, they're just crazy. Like, get away from me. They don't want any kind of contention. They may even say stuff like, I just need peace, man. I just need peace. Huge. That's like not to say men don't want peace if they're secure, anxious, or whatever, but the avoidance super want peace because they just don't do good with any kind of contention, right? That's an avoidant. The avoidance just, they don't feel so comfortable with too much closeness. Like they like a little closeness, but when it gets too much and you're too in your space, like if you're a person who needs to call a bunch of times a day, always be by their side, can't do anything without them, they will back up from you. And they're the type that will ghost a person. They're the type that will not communicate their feelings all the time. And it's not anything that they're doing to hurt another person. It's just how they self-regulate. They need a little bit more space than, say, an anxious in their relationships.
So is there a workaround where are people, like for me, like what you just explained, like that seems like a headache to deal with, to be honest.
I'm glad you said it.
It does. It seems like a headache to deal with. So the people that we come in contact with, are they supposed to know these things and cater to that? Because I think that's a little bit of babying too. What do you think?
I think that most people don't know. But the funny thing that's so like, I want to use the word unhinged about an avoidant is they literally always attract anxious partners.
For sure.
So they're the partners that are very giving, very loving, very empathetic. They need closeness. They're the type that, oh my God, he said love you, not I love you. What does that mean? Like they're the ones that like notice the change in your tone, your body language. They're the ones that
avoidance, right?
Avoidants always attract the anxious types. Like they're always matching up. It's just like a push and pull between them. Two avoidants probably wouldn't date because they're both the type, you can call me, I'm not calling you, and it just phases out, they never meet, right? And it's always happens to be that avoidance and anxious attachment styles always seem to get together because it would seem that an avoidant wouldn't like an anxious, but they do. They love that lovingness, they like the closeness, but they just don't want too much.
They want it on their terms.
Thank you. And the anxious just cannot really, they need that. Like the anxious person became that way because their primary caregiver was likely like an avoidant.
So what was, let's say, an avoidant, what was their primary caregiver kind of like to make them
avoidant?
Yeah.
Negligent.
Okay.
Yeah. So they were probably in a dysfunctional home where the mother, Caribbean, African, I would say Russian. We grew up in a very, boys don't cry.
For sure.
Don't make me give you something to cry for kind of thing. There's a lot of independence pushed on you. Like we're from what do they call it? The lock key? I can't remember the term for it, but it's when your parent says, don't open the door, don't do nothing. We didn't have babysitters. We watched ourselves.
Yeah, because actually that's a great point because I was thinking about it the other day. Like I was playing on the street from 5 years old all by myself.
Pretty much, me too.
And even when I speak to my mom about it, she like didn't have that, like it wasn't like a safety thing for her. It was just like, okay, like he'll figure it out.
Yeah, as long as you got in before the street lights came on, you're good to go.
Exactly.
And we were very much outside. Now the kids today can't even go anywhere. They're just on their iPads all the time. But an avoidant really happens from, I would say, like working parents sometimes too, who are probably working overnight shifts. I find in the Caribbean a lot of parents were like in the healthcare nursing industry, things like that, or working multiple jobs. Sometimes fathers weren't there in the household, so that one parent had the burden of raising several children or just one or whatever the case was. It's just an atmosphere for the avoidant to be developed where you needed love, either from your mother or your absent father or your present father, but you didn't get it in the way you needed. And I don't want to say that
they were bad parents.
Yeah, they weren't bad parents, but it's just that the way you needed it, you didn't receive it. It didn't mean that they didn't love you. It didn't mean they didn't provide for you. It just means that the way they expressed it didn't meet your need, because every child is different, right? But the avoidant had to learn how to, I need love right now, but I'm not getting it, so I have to find it myself, or I really want to cry right now, but I was told I'll give you something to cry for if you keep crying, or boys don't cry, or things like that. And they literally grow up having to self-soothe all the time. So now they get to a point where they don't even know how to receive that love that they want all the time. They just get it from themselves. So that's where they're most comfortable. When they're super vulnerable or feeling attacked or hurt or just, not as regulated in their relationships, they tend to go inward rather than expressing it.
Yeah, that honestly, you hit that on the money too, because even just thinking about my own life, like my first sibling came around 8 or 9 years old.
Okay.
So I had to figure it, like I felt like an only child forever, even though I have like 5 siblings now, but because the sibling came so late, like I was always by myself.
Yeah, and that makes total sense that you're an avoidant.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so anxious.
Anxious. Now this is a type that I was. So I took a test recently, and I'm secure. Why did I make it sound like
So
I
wait,
had
okay,
like...
so hold on. Before we get into the anxious, because you said you were anxious and you went to secure.
Yeah.
Like, how did you come to the terms that you're now secure?
I did the questionnaire. Like I went through the questions, but I know looking at anxious, I'm like, I remember feeling like that, even though now, like, because the first time I took my test, it was that, but then I also looked at the characteristics of anxious, and I'm like, I remember acting like this. Like, I remember caring about those things or reacting like that in my relationships when I was much younger. And that's how I knew for sure, right? It's kind of like WebMD. It's like, hey, are you coughing? Are you this? You're that? You're like, yeah, hell yeah, oh, you're dying. Like, that's how I looked when I was like looking at the anxious description. And I could definitely see how I became secure, because it took a lot of like, I think as you get older, you just kind of...
It's a self-aware thing.
Yeah, and as you go through different relationships and do a lot of self-discovery and just find like more of like a calm peace in yourself, you do become more secure. And I have a lot more grace for avoidance and different types now that I know why they're doing what they do. So I feel because of that knowledge, it helps you to,
know where you are.
Yeah, exactly.
So then now I guess we can get into what does an anxious attachment style look like?
So the anxious attachment style, they are exactly as it's described, anxious. They're the type that they need a lot of closeness in their relationships. That's the girl that literally will notice everything you do. If your tone changes, as I said before, like not saying I with the love you. She's also a person that tends to need closeness. If there's distance, that makes her feel very uncomfortable. If there's a conversation that she had with you and it doesn't get resolved within the exact moment, she can't sleep. She can't eat. Like, she's just like, what's happening? Why is this happening? Like, she needs a lot of reassurance in order to feel secure in her relationships. And matter of fact, I actually took a little screenshot of the descriptions, because I don't want to miss things, just in case there's someone who's like,
absolutely.
I need to know more.
While you look for that, it's kind of interesting, because as you're reading that, I'm like, oh, I have some characteristics from that one too. So there's stuff as like avoidant, anxious.
Yeah, there are some hybrid.
Hybrid ones.
Right, and I don't remember every single one, but there you could actually have like a blend of types, because when I took the test, it said I was secure, avoidant, anxious. That was the order. So it doesn't mean that you're like a full type
like
of...
you go in just one category and that's
exactly. You could have if you answer certain questions that fit into other categories, they give you percentages, like of how much it was. How much it was, I don't remember. Fair. So that would make sense, right? So they say for an anxious person, relationship insecurities, fear of abandonment, they lack boundaries, mood fluctuation, highly sensitive, and overly accommodating. So those are the main.
So those are like the people pleasers.
They are. And they don't have much boundaries. It's just like, what can I do to help you? Oh, And it's just like the girls that would be like, oh, so I co-signed a Range Rover for him. It's like, why would you do that? Oh, because he just needed some help and his credit was messed up. Like, that's the anxious girl. Like, she'll do whatever just to make you super comfortable, even if it's killing her inside. Even if the relationship is literally the most toxic thing ever, she'll stay there because she just needs like affection and love. Like, there's no limit.
Does that make someone miserable though?
I don't know what it is, but I feel like...
Why do they keep doing it?
I feel on some level, they're just thinking the more I give,
the better someday something will come.
If I just give a little more, that will make them do it. And you have to remember, sometimes it's not just about attachment styles. Some of these anxiouses get into relationships with narcissists. And what they'll do is they'll be really great because there's 3 stages of narcissism, which I don't want to dive too deep in it, but there's like the love bombing stage, the devaluing, and then the discard. And during that love bombing, the guy's perfect. He's calling all the time. He's linking. He's making you feel good, blah, blah, blah. And if you are with an anxious type, they will do anything to get that first 2-3 weeks back. And they'll think he is a good guy because I've seen the good. It has to be there.
So they'll hold on to that.
They hold on to it. It's literally, even if they've done like 20,000 disgraceful things, that little bit of the beginning of a relationship, in their minds are thinking, it must have been something I did that made this change. I can get back to it. I can love him harder. I can give him more. If I love him like this, he'll give me more. If I give him this, he'll give me this. But that's not the way it works. And that's why anxiouses end up getting in, these really, really hard to get over situations once they leave the people like that. Now, I don't want to say people that are avoidant are narcissists. I don't want to say that, or anxious are narcissists, but it is part of the reason I find a lot of anxious people still keep fighting for something that's 100% dead end.
Would you say that anxious are they the type to be in relationships all the time?
Usually, because they hang on the longest. They don't like to not be with a partner, and they give so much more grace. And then because they're so selfless and lack boundaries, they tend to let anything kind of happen just for, having someone there. Like, they need people there. So, yeah, they may be in relationships a little longer.
So you mentioned that you were the anxious type,
Absolutely.
right?
So embarrassing. So embarrassing.
So what? Yeah. So let's.
Why did I do that? I don't want to talk about it.
If you don't mind, like, what were the characteristics that you were displaying while you were this anxious attachment?
Oh, I was hypersensitive. Like, I was the.
I think that's a Cancer thing, though.
Yeah. Here we go. No, I was literally the type that was. I'm checking your followers. Like, oh, he likes whores. Okay, I was like the tone, and I think it is a Cancer thing too. But I notice tones. I still do, but that's just because I'm empathetic, right? And I care about people. So if I come in a room, like, my friends are like, "Are you like psychic? Like, how did you know something was wrong?" But like, I notice everything to this day. Like, if your tone is different, your body language, all of that stuff. But I think you're just hypersensitive to people at all times. And you also asked, like, how did I know I was? Or
yeah, how did you know? No, so I asked, like, what characteristics you were displaying while you were super anxious.
Oh, like I would say the more negative side of it too was nagging.
Oh,
I was a nagger, queen nagger. I would nag. And
But your reasons for doing that is because you wanted, let's say, a void met.
I was definitely with an avoidant, and I felt like the more that I just needed reasons, like if he was being cold or if he wasn't being as loving, like, I could not rest. I couldn't even, I literally would be unable to like think straight. Even at work, I would just be thinking about that thing. It kind of takes over your mind when you're anxious because you're always constantly in a state of, what can I do to make this peaceful? What can I do to make this person nicer to me? And I think a lot of young women tend to be anxious because you don't know yourself yet. You're still learning men. You're still kind of accepting who you are. You have these physical insecurities. You're not where you want to be in life when you're young. You're still living with your parents or just in college or university. So I can understand why a lot of young women fall into that anxious category. But as you get older, as you touch paper, as you know yourself, as you go through a couple gremlins, you're like, you know what? I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to cut you off. And that's what happens because you just had enough. So I feel like, the girlies got to go through, a couple trenches in order to get to that place where you're like, I know what I want. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to be respectful to get it. And if it's not here, I'm totally okay with leaving you alone.
So here's the thing. So now that you've moved you've moved to a secure attachment, it doesn't mean that you don't necessarily notice the same things you did when you were anxious, right? So how do you now cope with seeing the same things but reacting different?
Okay. How could I put it? You could have a person that comes to your workplace every day and they don't really smile, they don't talk to anyone. And you're like, what the hell's wrong with Tim? You think he's like a super weirdo. And then one day you finally have a conversation with him and he's like, I don't really smile because my mom passed away like couple months ago.
So they have grace.
And, you know, I've just kind of been having a hard time with it, but I come here because I need to pay the bills. And I know I'm not really that talkative, but I also have social anxiety. So it's not that I don't like you guys. It's just that I get kind of nervous around people. From that moment there, you're no longer like, Tim's a weirdo. You're like, Tim is hurting. Tim is a little awkward. So now I know to initiate conversations with him. And now he's nicer to me. He's more talkative. He may not be talkative to everyone else in the office, but I understand that there was a reason for it.
So there's less assuming.
There you go. And once you understand why someone's doing something, it's so much easier to react differently. And I think the reason why people remain anxious is because, one, they don't even know what that is. And two, they once they learn the reason for their behavior, there's a lot, as I mentioned in the beginning, there's a lot more grace, there's a lot more understanding, and you don't react with this sort of like, I'm being attacked, I'm a victim, or there's something wrong with them. You're more like, I get it, I understand it, and I know how to deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I know we touched on avoidant, we touched on anxious. I want to do secure, the last one. What's the third one?
Disorganized.
Disorganized.
Now, again, I'm going to just go to the list because
Yeah,
I love the way
worries.
they kind of pointed it out. So disorganized, they are unable to self-regulate. They find intimacy and trust very difficult. Tendency to dissociate. They lack empathy. And they want closeness, but they're very fearful of others. So I know that kind of sounds like an avoidant.
Yeah. I was about to say that.
But it's a lot more chaotic.
Is it more intense? Like they're as like you might see that person and be like, whoa, that person is cold-hearted. They don't like anything.
I would say that the disorganized.
I've met avoidance, obviously, and I've dealt with anxious, but I've never really
Disorganized?
Yeah, disorganized. I can't pinpoint someone that I can think about. Maybe they're disorganized.
Based on the descriptions and what I'm learning, I would feel like a disorganized probably had a bit more trauma
in their childhood.
And I would say it would be more intense. Whereas like even the avoidant might have had a parent that wasn't as lovey-dovey, but the disorganized, when you hear things like, you know, unable to trust, unable to self-regulate, like it's like, I don't want to just pinpoint it to one thing, like I would say, but I can say based on things I've heard, foster children might fall into this category.
True.
Someone who was sexually abused may fall into this category. Someone who witnessed really traumatic, scary things, like being kidnapped or something, or just going through something that was just like
more on the extreme side.
There you go. I would feel more people like that would go into the disorganized category. I wouldn't say it's exclusively them, because as I mentioned, I'm still learning and things, but based on what I'm understanding and looking at the description, I would say that they would be more there, where they're still, as an adult, like haven't dealt with a lot of, you know, the things they've been through.
Are they the type to be like, they're the, you know, that we all know those type of people that are like, the world's against me type of people?
Absolutely. And I don't think that they mean to be that way, but they've dealt with so much things. So much that they're like, I have not had an example of a trustworthy person. Everyone I've trusted has literally done me wrong. Every time I've tried to get close to people, it's literally been a scary experience. So they could look at the same situation like, actually, what's interesting, I remember I was reading a book, I believe it's called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't remember the author, but it's a book I highly recommend. Matter of fact, I was commenting. You know when you see a post and it's like, what? And you go to the comments and then someone says something?
Yeah.
And someone was like, you guys have to check out the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And because I like to read, I downloaded the book on Audible, and I was like, wow, this is really helping you to understand people. And one of the things they said was there was like some therapists, and they had some children. There was like a group of kids that, you know, had a relatively normal childhood, and ones that grew up in the foster care system. And they were showing them pictures. There was like a dad under a car working on the car, and the child was standing near to it. And then they asked like the group of kids that were like not exposed to anything too dysfunctional what was happening. They're like, the kid's watching his dad working on a car, and they're like, how does he feel? He feels good, you know, he's just playing with his toy or whatever the case was. And then they showed the exact same picture to a child that was in the foster care system, had been through, you know, some experiences like the disorganized. And he was like, the man, he's going to harm the kid, the car is going to fall on him. It was like some weird things that they seen. And I'm very careful with the wording I use, so if weird is triggering for anyone, I don't mean in an assaulting way, but it was just very out of the normal of what they seen when they looked at the very same picture. So, that's
crazy.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like sometimes you'll meet a person like, oh, this person's such a hater. Why would they think that? Why would they do that? But it's literally their thought process. They look at situations that other people could see like a normal situation, and when they're disorganized, they look at it like a threat. Like everything is off. And you may know people like that where you could tell them something good and they're like, oh, but da-da-da-da. They might be disorganized.
Wow. So it seems that if you are more knowledgeable on these attachment styles and you're aware in your everyday life with everyday relationships, you can potentially see the good in everyone.
You can.
Yeah?
You can. I naturally am an optimistic person.
Me too.
So when I meet people, it's like I'm not even the sort of person that can call someone ugly. Like that's not wording
Just
I use.
disrespectful.
It is. But no, some people be like, oh, he only has a face of mom. It's so hard for me to call somebody ugly. Like I don't do it, you know, like, cause I always feel like there's some kind of beauty in the person at some point, you know? But yeah, I think that's just part of it.
Okay. So let's go to secure.
Secure. Okay. So secure people, they're warm and caring, trusting and forgiving, good boundaries, manage emotions pretty well. They're responsive and they're honest and open.
Okay. So some people, luckily for them, that they're born in secure attachment styles.
That would be beautiful, yeah.
What did their childhood look like? What was their parents doing to make them secure?
Secure children are the ones that are like free to express, you know, like the ones that want to paint. You ever seen those kids on TikTok and they're just painting on the walls and you're like, I would have got messed up for that. They let them paint on the walls like, oh, he's just expressing himself. It's fine. You know, it's the child that, you know, they're even, I know this is a very controversial topic, but the parents that are like, you think you're a little boy? Okay, we're going to make that happen for you. And they let them identify as what they want. There's also like, just parents that were very loving, let's talk about it. You know, if you're feeling bad, give you a hug. Like I've seen a lot of, what I love in the Black community is I'm seeing a lot more fathers spending time with their sons, hugging them more, talking to them more, creating that safe space for them to be who they are, right? And I believe that a lot more kids now, which is good because our generation kind of went through some trauma. I'm not trying to throw our parents on the bus, but we did. We used to get our butts tore up.
Yeah.
But I feel like the secure kids they know that they can go to their parents and talk. They know that they can open up and it's never scary.
Fair. So I was on TikTok the other day and I came across a TikTok. I'm going to play it on when this interview comes out.
Right.
And it was just this 21-year-old explaining what she wanted. I want to play it for you and you let me know if this sounds secure to you.
Okay.
All right, hold on.
She's saying what she wanted in a relationship?
Oh, you heard it? You seen it?
No, I haven't.
Okay, yeah. Okay. And I was like, wow, she's so young and she's so sure of herself.
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
One second. I think it was on my Instagram. I sent it to someone. I was like, if my daughter is like this, wow. Wow.
I'm wondering if it's one I seen. Oh, was she the one getting interviewed by the... Yes, I remember.
How's the dating culture different in Miami as opposed to where you're from?
I would just say it's more fundamentally transactional in a way that I think is off-putting.
And how are they transactional?
Like men want women for their beauty and women want men for their money.
But you don't think that that's really how most relationships end up being anyways?
Yeah, for sure, in marriage, when there's a lifelong commitment. But I think when, you know, a guy takes a girl out to dinner, spends however much money, let's just say like $500, $1,000 on a meal, and then she's expected to have sex with him and they just have that. I mean, that's fine for other people, but it's certainly not for me.
Do you like going out to the clubs?
No.
Why not?
It's loud, and I can't hear myself think, let alone talk to somebody else, and it's just, there's drinking and there's just a lot. I just don't like it. It's not my scene.
What kind of men do you think you'd run into at clubs and bars?
Men that I'm not interested in. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, I don't do drugs, I don't have sex outside of marriage, so for me to look for romantic prospects at a club is ridiculous.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, I love her. I actually did see that, but I seen another part of the clip where I think he asked her about, you know, being a virgin.
A virgin, yeah.
That's the part I seen, yeah.
So when I seen that, I was like, yo, if I do have kids or do have daughters, if I could raise my daughter to be like that or answer like that, I'll
be proud.
Yeah, I'll be proud.
Her parents should be proud.
So this is a secure attachment.
Absolutely. She knows herself. And at such a young age, I'm impressed, right? But I mean, she's not too young. It's nighttime and she's outside, so she's of age.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100. That sounds super secure to me.
And let's play like a little guessing game. Like, what do you think her childhood looked like when she was young?
I feel that she was definitely raised by example. Mm-hmm. Either that or had parents that she wanted to be nothing like. Because I've seen it happen in 2 cases where you can have a child that's like, I'm not going to be anything like you, and they're the complete opposite. And then you have,
that's how they move into their secure attachment.
Right, where they're just like, this is not what I want. This doesn't make me happy. This is not right. And these kids nowadays are so smart. They're well-read. They're very politically correct in many cases. They're a lot more understanding of differences. There's less prejudice with our children these days. And I feel like, but to be honest, if I'm going to take a wild guess, I do feel her parents definitely led by example, and they made sure to let her know her worth. I'm assuming whether it's just her mom, or both
Just
her mom and her dad.
Confidence in there.
100%. Like they raised her to carry herself with respect and to want good things. And I'm sure that her father treats her mother with respect. So it's something she's seen. It's something that she grew up with. She didn't see a woman being treated terribly or violently or whatever. And I don't even need to know her parents to know that. But it's either A, they were pretty messed up and she wants nothing to be like, doesn't want to be like them in any way, or she was raised around healthy parents. But it's given healthy parents. It's given healthy parents.
Okay, amazing, because actually you said something that reminded me of Dame Dash, and he was just like, he's so aware that he's treating his child's mother with so much respect, especially around his kids, because he doesn't want his daughters settling for anything less than what he's given their mother. Yeah. And I feel like those type of examples can really perpetuate your child into a secure attachment.
Absolutely. And I know there's a lot of people in their 20s and 30s that are dealing with a co-parenting situation, and they may be like, oh, my baby mom is the worst, or my baby daddy is trash, and they do all these things around their kids and not realizing that you have a silent recorder around you at all times. You may just be expressing yourself as a human, which you have a right to, but when you have a child, you have to remember there's someone watching. There's someone watching, there's someone absorbing, there's someone learning from you. They're literally learning from you. That's why a lot of people, I feel people want to have a kid because they see cute pictures on the internet, or like, oh, I want a kid to look just like me. I want my legacy to be this. But it's a really heavy crown to bear as a parent, because everything you do, everything you say, even the things you don't say, plays a huge role in how that child can turn out, you know? So, I mean, I love that ladies or the young girls, parents, whatever they've done, whatever they didn't do, whatever is going on.
It's working.
I love it. Like when I see him, I'm like, good for you. And that interviewer, he could be a little messy sometimes.
Yeah.
No shade. He could be a little, he likes to instigate little things. And she stood her ground and very respectfully answered his questions. And I think the more he spoke to her, the more respect he started to give her. Because I've seen him ask questions. And I'm like, why would you ask that? Yeah. But that's his brand, right?
Yeah, true. So I've briefly talked about attachment styles on a previous podcast, probably about a year ago now. Yeah. And she said that when you develop your attachment styles, that you can't really change them, but you can work towards being secure. Yeah. And then when
finish it.
So when I expressed that to you, you're like, no, I actually don't believe that. I'm basically a walking testimony of changing an attachment style. Do you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yeah. So I remember we were talking, I was just saying, people say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. I've seen and witnessed so many people come from the depths of poverty to the heights of riches. I've seen people overcome drug addictions. I've seen people literally come from abusive situations to healthy ones. I've witnessed so many people in this world, even turn from like the occult to Christianity. I don't believe, especially based on what I know about the human mind, that if you really want to do something, you can do it. I will never let any podcast or any person tell me I can't. Study. Now, granted, if you have mental illnesses, other things like that, it could be a little bit more difficult for you. Now, one of the attachment styles, they said that is more challenging to get out of.
Disorganized?
Yeah, I already know. Disorganized, they said, now, we can only work with what we got here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm learning.
Right? So disorganized, they say, is more challenging. And based on what I know, I can see how that could be true. But I do believe, and when something they said that you can move to a more secure attachment style. You may have moments where you kind of backslide, just like in Christianity. And I don't mean to bring religion into this, but you're not ever going to be perfect at anything. You may not even be wholly secure and have little moments where certain things may make you feel anxious or avoidant. But it is possible to definitely move from one to the other. I feel the more you know, the more aware you are of it. You know what I mean? And if you constantly work on yourself, because we're always working on ourselves every day, you can become more consistent with it, with repetition, with desire, with just wanting to make your relationships work and wanting to be a better person. You might have your off days, women, we go through PMS. Some days I'm like not the nicest person, but yeah, you can definitely move to more secure for sure.
Okay. So these days in our, I would say, dating culture or just society, like there seems to be a big disconnect right now.
Oh, Lord Jesus.
Right?
Yeah.
And like, I always said, like, I don't want this podcast to be about men bashing women bashing men, or whatever you claim to be, right?
Yeah.
But let's just call it for what it is. There is a disconnect.
Absolutely.
Right? And when I was thinking about this conversation and preparing for it, I'm like, man, I was just reading a little bit about each one. I'm like, if more people knew about their own attachment styles and, let's say, other attachment styles, the dating culture might be a little bit healthier than what we see today, right? So I have a question. I admitted that I was an avoidant attachment, right? Mm-hmm. So does that mean that like if I'm getting to know someone and let's say they're anxious, or I'm realizing that they're anxious, is that like a red flag to be like, whoa, I got to stay away from you?
Funny enough, the secure type said to stay away from avoidance. They're like, just avoid them. They're only going to give you stress.
So wait, say avoidance should
you guys
avoid secure attachments?
No, they're telling everyone to stay away from the avoidance, period.
Oh, geez.
Because they're harder to date, and it's just like kind of like a never-ending battle. But on your side of things, dating an anxious person, is that a red flag?
Not red flag, sorry. I shouldn't say like they're the problem.
It's okay.
But is that something I should be like, this might be a rocky one?
I think everyone is always aiming to be secure.
Fair.
I think in any relationship you're with, or any partner that you're with, you guys should both, through communication, through understanding, both aim to get to secure together.
Sorry, not to cut you off, but what does that communication look like?
Communication, I think, for secure partners looks like you're able to discuss differences without making it seem like I need to win. It's like we are talking so that we can get together. It's never opposing. It's like, this is something we're getting through together.
It's not me versus you.
No, never. It's just like, oh, I can understand how that made you feel, or I understand how that made you feel, and trying to work together to create a safe space for communication all the time. It looks like allowing your partner to have a life outside of you, not feeling the need to constantly control, not doing manipulative things in order to get your way. It looks like being secure within yourself, so that when you're with a partner, you know that you're worthy of love. You know that you are allowed to have boundaries. And you also realize that if your boundaries are being crossed in a disrespectful way, that leaving the relationship doesn't mean you fail at relationships. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It's just that this person is not able to meet you where you are in your journey, and you're completely okay with that. So yeah, I think if you're meeting someone who seems anxious, having that conversation, letting them know that you do struggle with avoidant tendencies, and being like, listen, sometimes you may call me and you don't get me. It's not that I'm ignoring you. No, I'm not laid up with the girl. Don't tell me to have a good life. It's really that just sometimes I just need a couple hours after work to kind of regain my mind, because my work is so taxing. But I promise to create space for you. Like, I'll always call you before the end of the night. If we get in an argument, I don't really like to head on deal with the situation. I kind of just need a little time to think, because I find that when I'm like triggered, I'm a little rude, and I never want to be rude to you. So I'm working on that. Like, I've had times in my relationships where I've been like, you know what, today I'm just dealing with a lot, so I'm going to need a couple hours to myself. I just don't want you to think I'm not picking up your calls. And the person's like, wow, I need to do that more myself. And I'm like, do what? And they're like, just let you know why I've done that. And I'm like, oh, no, it's cool. Just want to let you know. So I think it's just
tone matters too.
Oh yeah, definitely tone, and just being cool. Like, I even had a friend come to me today, and they had something that their boyfriend was doing, and they're like, should I call him, girl? Like, what should I do? Because look at this, look at his story, da-da-da. Yeah. And I was like, say nothing. And she's just like, why? But like, it's messed up. And I said, you just argued with him like 2 days ago. I'm like, what was his reaction? She's like, he was not feeling it. I said, okay. I go, you don't really like what you're seeing right now. I go, before you jump to the conclusion that he's trying to disrespect you or he's trying to do whatever, I go, let's practice observation. Like, just watch him over the week, you know? And when the time is appropriate, because he was actually at work when she seen something she didn't like. And she was about to call him while at work.
That's never
Timing matters.
Yeah, timing does matter.
Right? Don't do that right now, because he's not going to be receptive. Even if he wanted to be open to the conversation, he's going to 100% be dismissive because it's not the time.
Yeah.
Your tone is going to be emotionally reactive because you're doing it based on being angry. You're not going into the conversation regulated and chill and just wanting to understand. You're like, what are you doing? That tone does not work.
Pure emotions.
Men don't like that. I had to learn the hard way. They don't like that. They're like, who are you talking to? And if they don't even ask you who you're talking to, they'll withdraw from you. Because I don't feel that most men enjoy, I don't think anyone, but men especially, they don't enjoy like aggressive confrontation. So yeah, working on that matters. Like, no, understanding yourself so that you can always approach things calmly. Not like, I'm not going to pretend that we're always going to be calm and zen. You're going to have moments where you're emotional, but being secure is where you can really be pissed and realizing yourself, if I react right now, I might say something I can't take back. And if I really love this person and care about them, I'm going to force myself. Because I'll tell you, there's been some times I was just like, I'm about to light this person up. And I had to bring myself back. And trust me, I was cursing them where I was. He can hear me. I can call him and text him. But after I got it out by myself in my journal, and I was like, whew, okay, that felt better. Then I gave it a couple hours and then hey, can we talk, you know, or brought it up in a really calm way. I don't think it's healthy to react when you're mad. And if you happen to be in front of them, walking away from the situation, but, you know, be like, I just need a second. Not like kicking something and then cutting.
So what I'm learning just from that is like being a secure attachment style, you're still going to have similar emotions when situations come.
You have the exact emotions sometimes, but you just have that buffer.
Yeah, and then it's how you handle them now that will make you more secure.
Yeah.
Opposed to what you were before.
I definitely feel the only thing that has changed with me is I have a buffer. Some people don't have the buffer. I don't really think in every situation, it's kind of like being at work, you know, when Susan comes in with the nonsense and you want to tell her something, but you're at work, so you know you can't just say that. I feel like if people could maybe have that same buffer they have in professional situations with the person you love more than any one of your coworkers, it would help.
So I'm super black and white. So I'm going to ask you, maybe it's just some practical ways to develop that buffer. Because I heard you say journaling, right?
Yeah.
What else?
Let me just think of the things I do.
Or even like writing something down, writing
Burning
the
it,
worst down, throwing the paper away, and then
buffering. I think pausing is okay. I don't feel every moment needs to be filled with words. So I've actually had a time before where something really rude was said to me, and I just didn't say anything. I didn't text back. I didn't say a word. And that person on their own came back and was like, you know what, that was a lot.
But would you say like that for that situation, would that be avoidant or?
It could feel that way, but it wasn't more so like ignoring them. It was just like, I knew that if I were to add to it, it's a boundary.
True.
If someone comes in and they say something to you very disrespectful, you can verbally say, hey, you can't speak to me like that. And there's also just not adding to that energy. If someone comes to me and I'm in a club and they're like, man, you stepped on my shoe, like, I could just be like, my bad, and walk away. Or I could stand there and be confrontational. Like, I don't believe avoidant is like not just that one action. It's like a series of actions that make you avoidant.
Okay, that's fair.
Right?
Fair.
I don't think avoiding something that could turn violent or bad, it makes you an avoidant person. I think it's just sometimes it's best not to put your energy in something that's hostile or that's disrespectful.
Fair.
I think anybody, no matter your attachment style, if someone's being very rude to you, engaging further is not going to help you. I think getting out of the situation is an act of love and respect for yourself.
Fair.
Yeah.
So when we had our Instagram voice note exchange, you said something so interesting, and it was just like, I feel like this could help a lot of people in getting to know people better.
Yeah.
You're like, man, you gave me a list. You're like, ask them what book they read, ask them this, ask them that. And I was like, wow, like, you know, like I never really thought about like getting to know someone. It doesn't matter what type of relationship it could be. It could be a friendship. You just want to know who this person may be. Can you say some of those things that you're telling? Do you remember?
You know, it was wild.
Yeah. So
wild,
like, you're
but-
talking about like just like, you know, ask them what book they read, ask them like you're just saying, you know, I can pull, you know what, I might pull up the voice note and put it on.
Oh my God, I don't remember what you said.
No, but it was such good advice because I never looked at it like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, asking people just a series of questions just to find out who they really are. What are their interests? What
Yeah.
are their disinterests?
I do remember you're
Okay.
jogging the memory. So I feel a lot of times when people meet, they ask questions that are unnecessary. Why do you need to know if they like Pepsi or Sprite?
Yes, yes.
That's what I was talking
Yes,
about.
yes.
Asking better quality questions in everything you do, no matter what kind of
relationship it is.
it enriches your communication and relationships with people. If you really want to get to know a woman, if you really want to get to know a man, one of the laziest kind of things I've been seeing on podcasts is, what do you bring to the table? Fam, ask questions, pay attention, because I could lie and be like, I bring bare things, and I don't bring nothing. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to get in your life. So, you know what I mean? Trying to get in your life. So I'm just saying you have to literally watch people.
Cool.
Because I can say anything. I could literally be like, yeah, Beyonce's my cousin. I'd never met this woman a day in my life. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, watch what people do. That is going to tell you everything you need to know about that woman, about that man. And if you do want to ask some questions, you know, find out. So, you know, what's the last book you read? If that girl ain't read a book since school, I'm not saying she's slow or anything, but it lets you know a little bit about her. You know, find out what her goals are. What does she want to do in life? She may have a job, but is this her dream job? Does she have any other aspirations? That can let you know a little bit about
working out.
Right. Like, you're a super ambitious guy. You have your company, you do the podcast. If you're dating a girl that's just maybe just working a 9 to 5 and that's all she does, she doesn't go out, she has no friends, you might realize that that person in a relationship with them may need you more often than somebody who has like a full social calendar or has a good balance of a little bit of them time, a little bit of relationship time, right? So I think if people...
Sorry, not to cut you off. I will say, like, I used to think that I like, you know, I wanted an entrepreneur or this or that, but like someone just as crazy as me, I don't know if I can do that. that's
very self-aware, Corey.
That's a little much. That's a little obsessive. That's a little... Like when it comes to this entrepreneurship, it gets a little crazy. So I don't know if I can deal with another me.
I think you definitely know what works for you, and that's good. And I wouldn't say you need someone exactly like you.
Fair.
And a person could be a little bit of your opposite. But I think it's just about, I don't think entrepreneurs can't date. I think it just depends on how they look at what they do. Fair. Some women are like super bosses, and they are literally like, what do you bring to the table? I need a man who makes this. And
I know some.
They're very aggressive.
They're very aggressive.
With where I am and where you need to be, you know? And then you have others that are like, yeah, I actually have a very successful hair care company and it's just my passion. But they're very still open to love. They don't have these rigid requirements. That doesn't mean that they settle for less, but they don't equate their value to how much money they make.
Ooh, that's a big one.
They don't. And that's why they're easier to date. So I don't think it really matters. And I've seen millionaires and billionaires online that they're just so chill. And you wouldn't even know by looking at them or anything that they're into, that they're even as wealthy as they are. They're just real chill and down to earth. So I don't believe every single person that has a lot of money is messed up. I don't believe every single woman that is an entrepreneur is going to be arrogant. Mm-hmm. There are some that are super humble, and they actually dedicate most of their finances to like humanitarian cause. So I think, again, asking those questions will help to qualify if that entrepreneur is someone you can date, or if she's someone who will maybe give you more of a masculine energy that you don't really like as a man. Mm-hmm.
Have you ever thought about being a therapist?
I get that. You know, you're like the 7th person that said that to me, and have I ever thought about it? I feel no.
No, right? No.
No, I just like to learn. I like to read.
You have a growth mindset.
Yeah, I like to read. I like to learn. I like to improve. I'm not one of those people that feel I know everything. I don't want that to be communicated in an interview that I know everything. I don't. I love not knowing everything, because if I felt I knew everything, what else is there to do in life? I want to constantly learn. I want to constantly grow. I want to like heal things that, you know, I'm still healing, or, you know, grow in ways I felt you about to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, like,
you're like, hold on.
You know, like I super respect that you just said, like, you know, like, you recognize not being like perfect in this like type of subject and stuff like that. So like, without getting into like super detail, what are some personal development challenges that you may be going through right now, even going through that transition into becoming secure?
Every time it comes to talking about me, I'm like, okay, well, it started when I was 3. No, I'm joking. No, things I'm working on is just one thing I'm not the best. I wouldn't say I'm not the best at, but it's something that I know I'm actively always working on is letting go. I might physically let go. I might seem let go, but mentally, those, you know, when you sit up at night, you're thinking about all the things you want to do in life, or just where you want to be, or, you know, the things you want to provide for your mom or your kids or whatever. Like, I feel like one of the things I'm actively working on a daily basis is letting go of things I can't control and just embracing the now, embracing where I am, being grateful for the things I have. Just giving myself as much softness as I can, not necessarily being obsessed with the soft life, like not wanting to put in any effort and have someone else take care of me, but just really just
give yourself grace.
Just the grace, just basking in grace, basking in like, it's cool, like everything's gonna be good. God got you. Just say your prayers, be good to people, put in the effort, you know, faith without work is dead. Just really enjoying things. Like I'm constantly reminding myself, no matter what's going on here, no matter what's going on there, that everything's gonna be blessed. And if it's not, it's not the end. If it's not, that means, you know, there's another day. And that's probably what I always work on. And even when I find myself being less than perfect, maybe having a reaction where I'm like, damn, that wasn't really cool. One thing about it, a lot of men say women can't apologize. I don't mind apologizing. And don't call me a unicorn. I'm an adult. You know, if I'm wrong, I have no problem being like, I was wrong. If I was disrespectful, I have no problem being like, you know what? The way I spoke to you was not cool. And, you know, I know you could have reacted a lot more harshly towards me, but I want to apologize for that. I've done that plenty of times. And if you are my ex or someone I was dating, you better hop up in these comments and defend it, because you know I apologized. Don't come on here and talk about, no, she don't. Because I apologize. I got the receipts if you don't.
Okay, lit. Honestly, that was a lot of information. I want to ask you 2 more questions, though. And one of the questions, what we do on this podcast is I asked the previous guest to ask the next guest a question, but they have no idea who's coming on the show. Oh, wow. So I'm going to pull it up for you. All right. Let's see what we got here.
You're pulling up a question for me?
No, sorry. I'm pulling up the question that they asked that you're going to answer.
Holy.
A little bit different. Hold on 1 second.
I'm nervous.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
Is there one part of your life that someone else can relive for you? What would it be and why?
A part of my life someone else can relive? You know what? I would like my daughter to relive my childhood from ages, like just a part of my childhood I really enjoyed. I want her to relive what it was like bike riding unsupervised in a small town to the lake with your friends, building a fort, playing manhunt.
Being outside all day.
I want her to be outside. Why are you always in the house, TikTok, always dancing every 10 seconds? Like, can you go outside and ramp? Like, gallivant. Gallivant a little bit.
Yeah.
I would love for her to do that. And I know it's kind of like, I know she's gonna watch this like, but you said I can't go outside. What are you talking about? But it's because now it's not as safe, you know? And it's not the same kind of like economy. It's not the same kind of safety as back in the day, but I would love for her to be able to like build a fort, just find random pieces of wood that the contractors left around, and just to be like, just see what it was like to have that real childhood where it was just outdoors. We didn't have the
not
phones.
that digital childhood.
I want her to play with the duck hunt gun.
Yeah,
you know?
I remember that.
I wanted to have the duck hunt gun where she's just like, you know, or being put in a full Nelson by your brother because you had the controller that day. She has no siblings, right? Yeah, I can't help her with that. I can't help you with that. But like, I would love her to have. I would love. I would love for her to experience what it's like to have siblings, and you know, getting WWF moves put on you and crying and everyone getting. Well, I don't know about the abuse part because we used to get fucked up.
Yeah.
But I would love for her to just experience like just the birthday cakes that were just like the weird little icing and the sprinkles. Now she has like cakes. It was like, her last cake last year was Tyler, the Creator.
Oh, jeez.
It was so fancy. It was like $4.
Oh, God.
I never had no $4 cake. It was bucket KFC.
Yeah.
And your cake from Zellers or wherever.
Or Little Dairy Queen.
No frills, you know,
Yeah.
a little whatever ice cream cake. She's having like custom cake. I never had that.
Jeez.
I was in the trenches. Like we didn't have that. I would love for her to be humbled. I would love for her to live a non-sport. Not. I wouldn't say I want her to be like struggling, but I would just like her to know how much like love and joy was in just having like a chill childhood.
Okay, dope. And the last, it's like a 2-part question.
Yep.
What is the best advice that you received? And what is the worst advice you received? And you don't got to say any names.
I'm going to call you out. The best advice? The best advice. The best advice I think I ever received from anybody would probably be like my grandma. And I wouldn't be able to say, there's no like strong quote, but she's always told me, you must have respect for your elders and that you can be as rich as you want to be, as beautiful as you want to be, but when you have respect for others, it will take you so much further in life than any kind of money or any kind of possessions that you have.
Yeah, I agree.
And she always said, put God first. I know it's very simple advice, but every time I put God first, the blessings follow. Anything that's hard for me or difficult for me that I don't have the strength or capacity to manage, God has seen me through. So the having respect for people, no matter how much money they make or who they are, has really helped me. That I'm so glad they put that in me from young, and having God as well. That's the best.
Okay, and the worst? No names. Please, not trying to get in trouble.
The worst advice? Oh, you got to get under someone else to get over somebody. Oh my God, why would you
elaborate on that?
So I used to have a little bit of a lady of the night friend. Is that the
Lady
best?
of the night.
I don't know how else to. I don't want to be rude, but a friend that was kind of, and she's like, the best way to get over a guy is to get under another one. And I used to be like, even when she said it the very first time, I was just like, what kind of advice is that? So I have to go get with somebody else to get over someone, which is kind of like an avoidant kind of behavior because you're not facing your emotions, you're just getting with someone right away. I think that's the worst advice in the world. And I will elaborate. When you come out of something that is like rough and you just jump into something else, you're literally using that person as a buffer for your feelings. You're using them as like a dumping ground. And remember, they don't know nothing about you. So they're going to think you're amazing. Oh, you're so well-spoken. Where have you been all my life? All them type of things. And as the mask falls off, as you get to know them, that person too, every single person you meet will always have their strengths and their weaknesses. And it's not going to be perfect. But when you come with that trauma from your last relationship, you spend no time reflecting, you spend no time healing, feeling the emotions all the way to the surface. I feel like it's like a pressure cooker. One day it's going to come out. And it's going to come out in a way where not only do you have to deal with the last relationship, but now
you have to deal with this one you just started.
Fam. It's so much. So it's just like, why just heal? Like, I know healing sucks when it's by yourself because some people feel things so deeply that it's like hard. They don't even want to face it because the last time they went there, they felt suicidal. The last time they went there, they couldn't eat or sleep or nothing, so they avoided it. Like, I'm never going back there again. If I got to use this person and not feel that, I'd rather do that than do this by myself. But there is 100% power and strength in learning to let those emotions come to the surface in a healthy way and healing.
Fair. Wow.
Yeah.
So, Natosh, I want to thank you for coming on, and you gave a lot of information. And I know I do want you back on this podcast because I know some of the information we can go dive even deeper on, just like maybe the subjects of attachment styles and stuff like that. So, but I feel like this was a great way to start this type of conversation, and I'm happy that we entertained that DM back and forth because I swear to you,
in the DMs.
I swear to you, it felt like I got an hour free of therapy, and you sent me some.
I'll be sending you a bill.
Yeah, and you sent me a workbook. I'll be honest, I haven't touched it yet, but I do plan to.
I'm judging you.
So all in all, I just want to thank you for coming on, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me.
No problem.
I had a lovely time talking, and I hope you guys gathered something from this. I hope you learned something from this. I don't have all the answers, but Google does. And I think if you Google your attachment style and learn more about yourself, it's going to help you in your relationships. And I really hope that podcasts, people that buy the mics, you have some responsibility, and it's not to divide men and women, but let's try to meet in the middle. Like, we all want love, you know what I mean?
I agree. I'm sorry, before we leave, can you let everyone know where they can find you?
You can find me in the clubs. I'm joking. No, my page on Instagram is at Natosh Renee. It's okay. I heard you call me Natosh, and I see. I'm not one of those people. If you say my name incorrect, I'm gonna be like, "Excuse me."
My fault.
You're not the first. It's fine. Like, it's not the end of the world. But Natosh Renee, and on TikTok, I give little tiny relationship advice videos, and that's Natosh Says. So yeah, follow me.
Okay, dope. Again, thank you for coming out, and I'm excited to see where this goes.
Black on black, get the fuss, started that facts on facts. Let's let us smoke pack for pack.